Hello, my name is John Storm, and I am an MKUltra survivor. Some of you may know me from some of my interactions with MK Super Soldier David Corso or with MK Super Soldier Duncan O'Finian. The fact is that there's a good number of us out there, and many more besides that you don't know and even we don't know. The big question in this particular set of videos is how many of them that have been cast aside and used for lesser roles, smaller roles, for somebody else's convenience, for someone else's agenda, that are out there today. And I intend in this video to get you to take a look at that. There was one guarantee that I always heard while being in the MK program, was that you'll never die of old age. It's not going to happen. Having said that, I have to tell you that I'm 60 years old now, and nobody is more surprised or shocked to find myself alive than me. There's only one individual that I know that is older than me out of this program, and that's David Corso. And I need to use that to let you know that there are successive generations of us. This thing started off of Operation Paperclip, bringing these Nazi doctors over in the 40s, just after the World War II. And they started radiation treatments and everything else. They start playing with all of this. In my case, if you look into Strong Hospital, University of Rochester Medical Center, Rochester, New York, you'll find that there's been a CIA office there, and they've been experimenting with radiation and MK and a whole number of other things. A lot of files have been redacted. They never came clean during the congressional hearings. All the stuff kind of got out there. Nobody did anything. Some people got apologized to. President Clinton apologized, and some of the surviving families got, I think, about $100 grand here in Rochester. There was about 49 families that they discovered that they come to the hospital for one thing, and they got injected with radioactive isotopes without their knowledge, without their consent, just to see what it would do. And they've also been playing with us. There's still a building to this day on campus at the University of Rochester. There's also another one on the campus of RIT, Rochester Institute of Technology. I'm telling you this because that's what's here in my town. Now in Denver and in other towns, there are more like these. I'm going to try to play some sequences from some of the congressional hearings and some of the testimony to let you see how this fits in with what we're saying when I say that these mass killings that you're seeing, these people that just wake up one morning and decide that a whole bunch of innocent people got to die, and then they turn into somebody else directly afterwards. This is not an accident. This is not a natural condition. Oh well, stuff happens. This was done on purpose. This has a fingerprint on it, just like if you went and robbed a bank and you left a nice thumbprint on the dial. They're coming for you because they know who you are. Well, we know, those of us that are in this program, when we make that accusation that this is MKUltra, when we see people doing these things, it is not a conspiracy theory. None of this is theory when you've lived through it. 60 years I've lived through this. I'm still battling with handlers to this day. But let me show you a few things first.
To the testimony today, it all sounds really familiar. I am here to talk about a possible link between radiation and mind control experimentation that began in the late 1940s. The main reason that mind control research is being mentioned is because people are alleging that they were exposed as children to mind control, radiation, drugs, and chemical experimentation, which were administered by the same doctors who are known to have been involved in conducting both radiation and mind control research. Written documentation has been provided revealing the names of people and the names of research projects in statements from people across the country. It is also important to understand that mind control techniques and follow-ups into adulthood may have been used to intimidate these particular research subjects into not talking about their victimization in government research.
What's important here is that you understand that this isn't just me or just some wild kook out there. This is people from all over the country, different walks of lives, from different types of families, income brackets, cultures, you name it. And they are all identifying similar doctors or the same doctors, similar programs that have had certain military fundings, and there is a connection. These little clips are from congressional hearings.
They're afraid to tell their doctors their histories as mind control subjects for fear of being considered to be crazy. These clients have named some of the same people, particularly a Dr. Green, who was associated with clients' reports of childhood induction of pain, mind control techniques, and childhood sexual abuse. One of my clients who had seen him with a name tag identified him as Dr. L. Wilson Green. A person with this same name was the scientific director of the chemical and radiological laboratories at the Army Chemical Center, and that he was engaged in doing research for the Army and other intelligence agencies. Other names that have come to light are Dr. Sidney Gottlieb and Dr. Martin Orn, who it is reported were also involved in radiation research. It needs to be made clear that people have remembered these names and events spontaneously, with free recall, and without the use of any memory retrieval techniques such as hypnosis. As much as possible, we have tried to verify the memories with family members, records, and experts in the field. Many attempts have been made through Freedom of Information Act filings to gain access to the mind control research documentation. These requests have generally been slowed down or denied, although some information has been obtained, which suggests that at least some of the information supplied by these clients is true.
You can see pretty much as they've done with like UFO phenomenon and anything else that they don't want to admit to, they relegate it to the lunatic fringe area, the conspiracy theory. As I said, the things I'm talking about here are not theories at all. They're proven, they're solid, there's evidence. Just because somebody pish-poshes it or it doesn't end up on mainstream TV doesn't mean that it isn't so and that they haven't been keeping something from you.
Good afternoon. Between the years of 1957 and 1984, I became a pawn in a government scheme whose ultimate goal was mind control and to create the perfect spy, all through the use of chemicals, radiation, drugs, hypnosis, electric shock, isolation in tubs of water, sleep deprivation, brainwashing, verbal, physical, emotional, and sexual abuse. I was exploited unwittingly for nearly 3 decades of my life, and the only explanations given to me were that, quote, the end justifies the means, and, quote, I was serving my country in their bold effort to fight communism. I can only summarize my circumstances by saying they took an already abused 7-year-old child and compounded my suffering beyond belief. The saddest part is, I know for a fact that I was not alone. There were countless other children in my same situation, and there was no one to help us.
And the sad fact of this, there still isn't anyone to help them. Not me, not Duncan, not a whole bunch of us. We can't storm any one place and make it stop, pull the cover off of it. You've seen what's happened with the WikiLeaks thing there. They treat that guy, they're talking about killing him for treason just because he blew the whistle on all the evil criminal activities that were going on that he got his hands on. It never comes out good. And if you think it's hard on that soldier, I want you to think about what it's like on a 7-year-old girl mentioned in that other clip. Or even with me, because I've been in this thing since I was a baby off and on. I'd get out and I'd get told if I didn't pull the line, if I didn't get straight A's in school, if I wasn't all this or that, I was going to be relegated to that institution for the rest of my life. Imagine what that comes off like, to be strapped down to a chair, have all the things these people have done to you. You know it's coming. You can say anything you want and nobody's going to listen to you. You're always going to be crazy. I need to share with you that there are many ways of accomplishing the same thing. MKUltra operates under a multitude of umbrellas. There's clinics, there's military bases, there's hospitals that cooperate with this. Yeah, all to get their funding. CIA shops and phony businesses set up everywhere to cover the damage control for all these things. For the super soldier program itself, there's also MK Monarch, MK Talent, MK Search. There's loads of these. For one, you need to be super strong. Okay, you just can't beef up somebody's muscles and expect that to work out right. You've probably heard of muscle-bound people that were so muscle-bound when they went to stretch something past 500 pounds, they broke their own bones doing it. Their muscles are so strong, their bones would snap like twigs. Well, in order to make that happen, where you can get a guy like me or Duncan that can bench press 1,000 pounds or something like that, or flip over a car by ourselves, you have to harden the bones. You have to strengthen the skeleton that you're going to hang these super dense muscle tissues on. And they can genetically affect that. This is not a super science or some far out thing. If you watch things like Fight Science, that you will hear how that they use methods like what they call microfracturing. By the martial artists continually pounding away on these concrete or a piece of iron or something like that, they're creating microfractures. And the calcium just kind of gathers and builds up and makes the bone harder and stronger. Well, my bones are strong and hard as brass. Blades, bullets, if it's not high enough power, will deflect off of my bones rather than hit my organs. This makes me less susceptible to being killed in battle. My strength allows me where I only have to be close enough to touch, and my one single punch is hard enough to just blow the fragments of the bone back into your tissues or your brains. Wherever I hit you, it's going to break. Whether I have a special ray gun or anything else, they got technology for this, but I'm a child of the 50s. The only guy I know older than me in this system is Dave Corso. And me, I kind of preceded Duncan by a little bit. There's things they did with me, and they made mistakes that they didn't make those mistakes with Duncan. They learned from Dave. They did what they learned from Dave that worked, and tried some other things on me. A lot of this worked, and some of that they kept and they did to Duncan, and some of it that didn't, they revisited and they did it another way. There's these places all over the place. Now, in the course of doing this to somebody, the mental conditioning for one is such where they got to fracture your psyche. So they got an individual that can be a psychopathic killer, and an individual over here that can be Casper Q milquetoast, work a regular, work a day job in the suburbs, pay his taxes, raise his family. He was a quiet man. How many times have you ever heard that in some of these maniacs that just kind of went out and just start mowing down everybody in a McDonald's or a Walmart or something? He was a quiet man. I didn't expect that of him. It's like, yeah, they got up and all of a sudden they decided they were going to do that. This doesn't happen by accident. Well, a lot of the people that they try to break, you got the testimony of that one girl, the things they did, that turns a lot of those children into gibbering idiots. There's no place they can live or function but in an institution the rest of their lives after that. Now, there's some people that don't quite make it to super soldier status or super spy or any of a number of things that they try to build us into. And they may be fractured psychically, you know, their psyche, their personalities fractured so that they can kill and do all this and not even remember it later. That makes the perfect Manchurian candidate. But somehow they're not likely to survive all the bone fracturing and the dislocations and the electrocutions and all that other kind of stuff that they did to the rest of us. But we have a functional MK person with a fractured psyche. We can turn around, we can put him out there, he can hold down a workaday job, and when we're ready, we just call him up, ding, on the telephone. He hears a certain tone, goes out, gets his guns, and starts shooting the place up. You've probably heard in Duncan's own testimonies. I wish I had some here. I'd play a clip for you, where basically he'd get a phone call, there'd be a tone, he grabs his boogie bag, and he's gone for 3 days or a couple of weeks or something like that. It's hard to keep a regular workaday job when stuff like that happens and you get back and, why'd you miss so many days without calling? Well, now after 72 hours, if you don't call, they automatically consider, they don't have to fire you, they just consider you as having quit. It's hard for guys like us to keep jobs down like that, especially when that gets done to you. In the case of this man in Aurora, in the case of a man in Binghamton, and a number of other places where you see these same kind of sudden mass murders come up out of nowhere, this is the case. If you follow the tracks, you're going to find certain clinics, certain doctors mentioned just like in those clips. Now, there's those of us that actually make it, and I wish I knew what the exact numbers were, because it haunts me every day of my life. How many children did they go through? How many children have you seen on a milk carton that wasn't taken by their stepfather or their mother, or even an independent serial killer, or used for doing child porn or something like that? They ended up in one of these institutions, one of these hospitals or clinics somewhere. They get put down in a room, they get strapped to things, and all kinds of horrible things start happening to them. And who are they going to tell? Who's going to listen? You? I've been here 60 years and none of you really heard me yet. Dave's been out there, Duncan's been out there testifying to this stuff all the time. It's really hard to do, because you want to talk about PTSD, post-traumatic stress syndrome. Yeah, it's one thing to get PTSD when you're 19, 20 years old and you're out there on a battlefield seeing horrible things. But when you're 7 years old and you are seeing horrible things done to other children, you are there in the room with them. Think about what that does to you and what that leaves you with. Imagine what you close your eyes and see when you go to sleep. And if you think we're not real, you think I'm kidding, okay, I survived it, well then you should be super strong or something like that. Where's the proof of that? Well, for one, I'm not going to jump through hoops for you. I'm really sick and tired of jumping through hoops for freaking Nazi doctors my whole life. But I got a little something that I can share with you. Boys and girls, I'm a trained professional. I've been conditioned through MKUltra. I'm a master martial artist, and I have been training my family. I have been training Black Ops, Special Forces, Army Rangers, other MKUltras, Marine Recons, Green Berets, SEALs, you name it, for most of my lifetime. So the things that I'm doing, don't you attempt without proper instruction. Are some of them possible for you? Through certain conditioning, they are. I can teach you to be a better martial artist or a better killer than perhaps the average Joe, because I know things about your structure and how to strengthen them. They also have a tendency, when they pick MKUltra people to work on, generally they've been working on the same gene pool for a couple generations. Nice little example of that is this next clip that we'll try to finish off with. This is my nephew. So in conclusion to my little presentation here, I don't want you to take this as some wild rumor. So-and-so says it might be MKUltra. Oh, that's a conspiracy theory. I think what you really need to do is take what information you get off mainline TV. Take what information you get off these wild things you see on the internet all over. If there's any truth to it all, there's places where it can be backed up. There's places that'll collaborate that evidence with something else. Put those people together in the same place at the same time. What clinics, what army bases were used, what doctors were named. You'll find that there's information out there. The information is there, but you have to be your own detective. I'm not saying you take my word for everything and be all impressed with me. I'm not here to be impressed of you. I'm not impressed with you, and I have no reason to want to impress you. I just want you to be informed. I want you to understand how you, your loved ones are being used. Hey, I'm somebody's son. I was somebody's grandson, and people did these awful things to me. The people in those congressional hearings, people even like Duncan and Dave, awful things got happened to them. You can't imagine how awful. They just got into the ritual abuse, and if the ritual abuse wasn't bad enough, the things they did to make us stronger, fracturing bones, every inch of bone fractured and microfractured until it heals and the calcium builds up. And then once it builds up, you got to get your joints working again. It's hard. They don't just work quite as good. You got all that calcium caked over everything, and that's got to break. That's got to work. That's pain like you can't believe. And that's just one part. That's just making me strong. What's making me harder and, you know, my muscles harder and denser and all that other things, all the other parts of the conditioning that go with it. And it varies from one part of the program to the other. One may rely on a lot of bionic implants, chips, things to amplify signals to muscles and nerves. Some may use mostly genetics, or they'll use combinations of that. They'll make you a chimera. They use DNA from other things. I have more than just human DNA in me. I even have animal DNA in me to bring out certain things, to bring out certain abilities, to make me functional, survivable, and most likely to be able to carry out my mission without embarrassing my masters. I'm going to have to deal with myself and my own memories coming back to haunt me for having produced this production and giving you this information. But I really think you should have it. I really think you should understand. I mean, really understand the width and the depth of the people that's ruling you behind your back without your knowledge. Those 49 families I spoke of at Strong Hospital that got injected with radioactive isotope, nobody asked them anything. And, oh, wow, you know, your dad dies. Yeah, here's $100 grand. Makes you happy? Maybe that'll make you happy. Maybe I miss my father. You know, maybe I'm a human being and I actually miss somebody. I'm not so conditioned that I lost it. In fact, I got mine back. That's more than happens to just about anybody. It's more than they can ask for. There's somebody laying under the knife, getting awful things done to them. They are screaming until they sound more like animals than human beings. And you know what? You don't hear them. Nobody else hears them. And they know it. Nobody's coming to rescue them. Nobody's going to come and stop that from happening to them. In fact, it's going to go on till either they're so broken they can't function and they get put away in a room somewhere and drugged the rest of their life, or until they become monsters themselves. That's what they have to look forward to. This is the evil in your midst. They're just not a little bit bad. They're fucking gone evil. And I just want to leave you with that thought.